Good afternoon to our audiences. This is our second episode with the industry experts on digital marketing. Welcome to Extra Talk on Indixital. Today we have Mohit Desai, who's been a digital marketer almost all his career, and we are hoping that we will get insights into the industry that he's currently at or his past experiences, and try and get more useful knowledge for our audiences. Hi Mohit, good afternoon. Thank you very much for coming over and doing this for us. I know you've never been on camera, you are the unsung behind the guy, behind the organization guy who's built marketing ecosystems that have driven great results for whichever organization that you worked with. So thank you very much for doing it first time with us. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Nitin. I think this is generally my first time experience at being in front of the camera. Everything I do, in spite of being into marketing, has always been in the back end. And yes, mostly digital, but I also have, in my initial days, primarily worked on the offline side of the things as well. So yeah, I do have perspective from both worlds.
So fantastic. So मज़ा आने वाला आज की conversation में. We'll try to get under your skin to figure out what's happening, and also help our audiences know more about Mohit Desai as a person while having this conversation.
Awesome. I think you'll have to work hard because considering this is my first time, I don't know how I'm going to do this, but yeah.
No, we'll figure this out as we go. I'm also not a veteran at doing this, so let's play this together.
Awesome.
Thanks a lot. So Mohit, you've been in the industry long enough, and you've seen a huge amount of transition happening from media perspective, from an offline heavy ecosystem to, and we used to dream about when the digital spends will go beyond 2-3% and then 8-9%. Now the entire industry is talking about 50% and more, and there are some companies that are even doing 100% of their media spends on digital. What is your understanding on how things are moving from a brand perspective, from an advertiser perspective? What is the thought process and what is happening? So your insights on that.
Sure. I think you got it right in terms of, one of the reasons why I moved on to digital was also that. Like more than a decade ago when I used to be in the offline world, I started seeing shift in the consumer behavior.
Okay.
Earlier, all consumption patterns of how they engaged with a brand or how they consumed a product used to be in the offline space. Slowly and gradually, you started seeing people consuming content in the digital world. From content, it moved on to engaging with the brands in the digital world. From there, you started seeing people opening shops in the digital world. That is when I realized that consumer shift is happening in terms of their behavior.
Okay.
And if their behavior is moving digital, very soon transactions will move digital as well. So it was interesting. I started exploring the digital world and eventually got hooked onto it, which is when I moved on to the digital world. When I started my career in digital, like you rightly said, it used to be about 3-5%. Primarily because digital was one of the media vehicles. Now what is happening is digital is the way everything is getting consumed. So it's no more a media vehicle. It's essentially by default, that's the world where, which is helping the consumer connect with a brand. And in the beginning it used to be more B2C, but now if you look at it, any category that you belong to, if you don't have a digital asset, there is no way that you'll engage with somebody. So that has become prima facie. And like you rightly said, some of the categories are now moved 100% digital. So if you look at most of the startups today, barring their products packaging, there is no money being spent in the offline world. The way you talk to the consumer, the way you build your shops, in some scenarios, even the packaging is all digital right now. So yeah, I mean, digital is here to stay, and it's no more a channel. It's your way of life.
It's the real world now.
Absolutely.
So, one of the conversations that happen when organizations look at the digital ecosystem, because organizations don't have their own teams, right? One of the biggest conversations that keep on happening is that should an organization build their own capabilities, or should an organization partner with an agency to kind of get the right results? What have you seen in your journey? What has worked for you in the past? What is working for you now? What's the sense that you get from apna samrajya versus a shared samrajya with an external partner?
See, one of the things you'll see a pattern in my answers is going to be that, one size does not fit all. And the same goes for having an in-house versus an outsourced ecosystem. A lot depends on the nature of your business, the size of your business, and the capacity at which you can spend right now. So what my recommendation would be, if you are a startup starting off, I think you need to have a combination of having one or two resources in the marketing space who will do things and drive things, and rely on an outsourced environment where you have experts coming in and consulting and executing things for you. As the size of the business grows, you need to identify which are the capabilities that you want to hone in-house and start acquiring the right talent for it, and have like a hybrid model. And eventually when you become, I would rather say that, like when you establish yourself and you reach a certain maturity, is when you start realizing that, how can I drive optimizations through in-housing some of the things. That's the way I would progress into things. But like I said, it entirely depends. Like, for example, out of all the organizations that I have worked for, it has always we've relied on external agencies.
Okay.
Prima facie, the reason being, you have a certain capacity that you need to build your teams on. And if you need expertise on different platforms, if you need expertise on different funnel stages, content, you cannot hire everybody in-house. You will need expertise in each of the domains. You can't say that, one guy is going to do it everything. Which is when you will have to identify the guy who's in-house has to be the guy who's directing things. He needs to have that vision,
Okay.
and he needs to translate that vision into an objective brief for the agency, and they are the ones executing it for you. So that's the way I look at things.
Interesting topic that you started, giving brief to an agency. We know for sure that whenever an organization gives in brief, एक तो ये फ्राइडे शाम को 6 बजे ही ब्रीफ क्यों आता है एडवर्टाइजर से, और पहले क्यों नहीं आता है, और एक्सपेक्टेशन ये क्यों होती है कि मंडे सुबह मिल जाना चाहिए इसका जवाब. Why is that the case with most of the advertisers that I have come across, or maybe that's how it is ingrained in the system? ये जो brief देना है, why is it required? Why isn't the partner not attuned to your daily work, what is required, what aren't there long-term objectives that have to be met, or how does this entire ecosystem work?
This is where I might get controversial.
No, don't need to name any brands.
Not naming. This is a general phenomenon, and you'll see that more in the subcontinent, more in our side of the world. And since you've been an agency yourself, you would have, I'm sure, dealt with international clients as well.
Yes.
And this is not the pattern you would have seen in the Western countries.
No.
The way we operate is very different in the sense that, leadership is not actually delegating stuff. You are not building leaders within yourselves. So rather than giving objective milestones to your teams, you end up giving prescriptive tasks. And this is where things change. So if I have somebody under me whose sole objective is to look at content and drive social engagement, for example, if I start telling him how to do that, then I'm not letting him do his job. And that's what typically happens. And I have two reasons why this happens. One, most organizations do not have long-term objectives. Yes, there are annual budgets being built. Yes, annual plans are there. But they're not clear in terms of what are the outcomes that we want at the end of the year. All they see is, there's a certain number I want. But unless until you break them down into output matrix that you are going to evaluate those numbers on, you will never be able to tell your teams to go solo and do things on their own. You will constantly have this urge of telling them what to do because you yourself don't know. What you've agreed on at the beginning of the year is only that one number that you are achieving. But to achieve that, what are the 5 things that you want your teams to work on is something that has never been agreed on. And then constantly what you would do is you will identify something that is happening into the market and you will start reacting onto that. The other aspect that we are very great at is aping others. And like I said, because we are not confident as to what we want to achieve and how we are going to achieve that, we have this constant urge of aping somebody else into the market. So there's a new player who's identified a gap into the market. They will come up with something innovative, and in spite of you being a market leader, you'll not be confident about yourself, and you'll suddenly feel that, okay, this guy has done this, let us also do that.
Friday शाम को 7 बजे ही क्यों?
Because Friday को ही I think leader के पास time होता है कुछ नया देखने के लिए.
So
most leaders, if you notice, they'll keep their Fridays relatively free, and what they would do is that is a time they will have brainstorming sessions or free flowing sessions, and that is where they'll come up with ideas and they'll suddenly put their teams to action and say कि चलो आज कुछ नया करते हैं.
उस नए के चक्कर में होता ये है कि जो एजेंसी इकोसिस्टम बना हुआ है, suddenly that is put into a lot of pressure, and then there is this angst that creeps in against the advertiser, and sometimes I believe that does not help the cause. And of course that's not a problem for me to solve. I'm sure at an industry level things will get solved. You've hired a lot of agencies in the past. One of the conversations that I keep on doing with the agency guys and is all around this pitch business, right? Agencies are tired of making pitches, but because it's an industry practice, they still have to do it. Some of them do it brilliantly because and they have teams inside the organization, so they do it very well. Some of them do it reluctantly because that's the only way of getting business. One of the challenges that one as an agency faces is that most of these pitches are done FOC, free of cost, right? And it's been a constant endeavor, and I've been part of the agency culture. It's always been an endeavor to see if an advertiser will pay for that pitch, because there is a great amount of work that goes into it. I have seen sleepless nights, I've seen data being crunched, I've seen insights being taken out, tools being used. All of that happens, right? But कोई advertiser इस मेहनत के लिए पैसा देने को तैयार नहीं है. They are not willing to give money for it. Why? Why do you think that happens?
I think that is changing.
Is it?
To both your points. Even to your earlier point on Friday evening briefs. And it is changing on both fronts. Somewhere clients are also realizing that it's a little unfair to send a brief on a Friday evening and expect an output on a Monday morning. And second, which is probably more prevalent, is agencies have started pushing back. And I see that a lot more with the new age agencies who are doing far better quality work.
Is it?
You will not see that with traditional agencies.
Okay.
You will not see that with really small agencies who really want to grow. But agencies which are very building their businesses on a controlled environment where they are very clear they want to work on quality output, they are able to give this pushback. And they are also able to push back on free FOC pitches. So I have come across enough agencies who've outright rejected us, saying that, if you are willing to pay for the pitch, we will go ahead. Otherwise, we apologize, but we will not be able to participate.
Wow.
It is still not a norm, yes. And unless until it becomes a norm, it is going to always be difficult for some of the upcoming agencies to give that sort of pushback. But yes, it is happening, and that change is happening as we speak.
Good to know that there are agencies that are doing so. I have heard that in the creative side of it, but is it happening in media side or performance media side?
No, it is not. I agree with you. It happens more on the creative and social aspects, and the reason why it also happens is because a lot of IP is being used. There are ideas which creative folks are coming up with, and a lot of clients are notorious for aping those ideas, just picking it up and executing it at their end through their regular agencies, and not giving credit or
Yeah, there
even
have been
monetary
instances
benefits.
last 2-3 years. I've seen those instances happening. Some of those agencies have actually called it out, saying this
Absolutely.
is our work. Why are you using it? There has been a recent incident as well, where a social media agency had given out a work to a large advertiser, and suddenly they were no longer their agency, but they ended up using it. You rightly called it out, and I think it's a bad practice. You shouldn't be doing it. Advertisers should avoid doing such stuff because it brings bad repute. From a karma perspective, right? You're not doing the right thing. While these pitches happen, agencies don't get feedback most of the times from the advertiser on why they are losing, or if they are winning, why are they winning? They just say you are moved to the next round.
Yeah.
Why is there lack of transparency between agencies and advertisers when it comes to pitch work?
It's pure lethargy. I don't think intent is an issue. I think it's a combination of two things. A lot of marketeers do not want to take the effort of giving subjective and objective feedback. It is very similar to when you go for a job interview. About 9 out of 10 times you will not hear back from the recruiter in terms of why you were rejected or why you went ahead. Why does that happen? It is similar. I mean, because you're going through the process with multiple folks, you somewhere tend to lose, and you do not want to put that effort of actually picking up notes and writing down feedback and actually translating it into an objective way of giving it back to the end user, which in this scenario is an agency. So that's it's. If you ask me, it's lack of diligence and lethargy, which is why they never get to hear why.
When you end up choosing an agency for whatever work that you've done in the past, has it been the pitch or has it been the relationship that has worked for you?
In my experience,
let me rephrase that question. I don't want to give you an opportunity to give me a straightforward answer. Does pitch make a difference?
For me, always has. A huge yes. Unless and until I see the agency putting in that extra effort, putting in their minds, I do not give business. A lot of times when it's a small project, I might do it on the basis of relationship. Because if I know that somebody is good at an XYZ business, I'll be like, okay, let me reach out to this person. I'll be able to start my project quicker. I'll be able to execute it. I know this guy is good at it, and they'll finish it. But when it comes to larger objective, let's say if it's a creative mandate or a media mandate, and I know that I've been working with an X agency for the last couple of years. I've seen fatigue coming in out there, and I want to take my business now to the next level. I need a different set of brains working on it.
Sure.
I will have a proper brief on it. I will set out what my objectives are, what the outcome is expected, and I will expect agency to put in that kind of effort. And unless until I see that effort coming out, I would not go with that agency.
But Mohit, some of the times I've noticed that the agency puts in the effort, right? Creates a pitch and delivers on the promise. But when it comes to execution, their entire pitch work is shoved, pushed somewhere in the drawer, and that's not the real work that you actually wanted the agency to do.
Yeah.
You end up doing BAU.
Yeah.
So what was the point of doing that pitch? अगर BAU ही करना था तो BAU की बात कर लो.
So there are 2-3 things where things fall out.
Okay.
One, when you look at it from an agency perspective, I think to win the business, what they do is they put the best minds onto the pitches. And in fact, from what I know, some of the agencies, they have separate teams doing pitches,
Right.
who probably never see the client's face post the pitch is done. Most of the times, that is where things fall out. And it becomes very difficult as a client to identify that unless you are either part of that ecosystem or you know people in and out. That is one. Second, it's also client's responsibility to get the right output, right? Your job at the time of evaluating an agency during the pitch phase was to see whether they can think, to see whether they have the will and the intent to understand your category and deliver what your objectives are.
Okay.
But after that, you can't leave it completely on autopilot and assume that the agency will take it forward from there. If you are not giving them the direction, if you are not pushing them in the right manner, if you're not pressing hard on them, they are bound to fall off. So a lot of times I've seen clients would probably do the right pitch, but then after that they are like, okay, you've understood, we hired the right agency, अब तुम हमारे लिए कर लो business.
But
business तो तुम चला रहे हो, right?
Correct. वो उनकी agency की responsibility तो नहीं है.
Correct. But most marketers, they end up doing that कि मैंने तो भैया agency select कर ली, अब तुम्हारा काम है धंधा करना.
No, you're right, absolutely. I've seen that side of the ecosystem as well, and then the agency is questioned on the fact that why and why not.
Correct.
And then because the entire remuneration of the agency is based on just media spend or something, it is not worth its while to kind of push the envelope and get things sorted out for the advertiser. In your understanding, what has been your structuring with in the past with the agencies? Do you think a fixed model, fixed plus variable model, agency fee model, media spend model, what has worked for you, and what has been the best relationships that you've built based on that?
See, I've always, like initial days, it has always been the traditional way of working, which was like the fixed retainer based model on the creative side and a commission based model on the media side.
Right.
What I realized like about half a decade ago was that what is happening is, like we discussed, like agency has no skin in the game.
Right.
They will put all their might into the pitch, and after that you will see probably the lowest strata of people working on your account who are not really applying brains, they are just executing. And which is where it became important to change the model. So at least last couple of pitches that I have kind of signed off with any agency, it has always been a model where there is certain amount of remuneration that goes as fixed, because I know if I don't do that, they will not deploy the right folks, and you'll end up getting junk. And keep a certain amount of variability so that there is some skin in the game. They need to see an opportunity to scale up their business, because at the end of the day, every agency in today's time, they have specific BD guys. All their job is to how do I increase revenue from the same guy.
Correct.
Or go out and get somebody else from the market. Now, if I leave that opportunity, what's going to happen is he's going to not put focus on me. He's going to put focus on how do I use these guys and get a new client. How do I create an opportunity for the same agency to earn more money from me? And the moment I do that, he will put a little bit of extra effort into acquiring better business for me. And that's the way I look at it. So that it has to always be a mix. And I use that methodology on both fronts, not just in the media side of things, but even on the content and social side of things.
Oh.
How do I create goals for my partner and help him achieve better output for me, which will give better earnings for him also.
So have you, let's say in the last 4-5 years, have you paid out the variable to the agency?
Not all the time, but I would say about at least 30-40% of the time.
So to some extent, it's a negotiation criteria for the advertiser then? Save some money by putting a variable cost, or has it?
No.
Or is it that the advertiser doesn't want to pay and they put it as a variable fee? Or is it that the agencies don't care? ठीक है यार, 30-40% of the times I'm getting it, it's fine. मिला तो ठीक, नहीं मिला तो ठीक.
I think it's a combination. When it comes to me, I can talk for myself.
Yeah,
The objective has never been to cut money. The objective has been always that how do I keep it at a position where if he tries a little harder, he will get that extra. Having said that, what I have noticed, especially with the large banner agencies, is that it's a negotiation tactic for them. Because once the money is in the bank, they don't want to put in that extra effort at earning that extra money, because they are being evaluated on the billing that they do and not really on the output of the client. So if you look at how an agency employee is evaluated, it has nothing to do with what the client succeeded in doing. It is more to do with what is the invoice value that they got, or what is that individual's contribution into the client's effort. If I were on the agency side, I would appraise my people or my BD folks onto identifying what are the KPIs that they achieved for the client, which is something that nobody's doing right now. And unless and until you see, I have never called an agency, and you would have probably experienced, I never call an agency a vendor or an agency. I always call them partners.
Correct.
Unfortunately, it's not the same on the other side. So unless and until you become partners and you collaborate to co-create something or co-achieve something, you will not see these models succeeding.
But I've been on the agency side, and agencies want to put in the effort, but when the goal expectation, or let's say the expectation of the advertiser is so off-sided, I'm not saying outlandish, but off-sided. Let's say, let me give you an example. There is a client which is driving a cost of acquisition of, let's say, 100 rupees. Suddenly, when the next year AOP is being planned, the conversation is around that if you deliver something to me on 50 rupees, you will get your variable. Now the problem is that these outcomes are driven on demand and supply on the media side. And media from the channels that you're using, even in digital channels, is becoming more expensive. Now isn't that an off-sided conversation saying ki, give it to me at 50% of my CAC, which is unachievable, and suddenly the variable is as it is vanished from the ecosystem, then why should I put in the extra effort?
A little segue. One of the reasons why this happens is because, like a decade ago, how digital was sold. Two things. One, digital was sold as an ROI model. Second, it was always, and that is in general also, like the assumption is economies of scale will apply. If I increase my business, my cost should go down. These are primarily the fundamental reasons why this happens. Things are changing though, because until now you would see digital folks being part of either the marketing teams or in some scenarios, let's say strategy teams. But if you look at the new age ways of working, most of the senior leaders, including the founders and the co-founders, are digital first, and they do understand this. But we are still like long way from everybody in the ecosystem understanding this. So wherever you will face conventional leaders, people who've been more attuned to offline ways of doing business, they will take some time in understanding how a digital platform works. And I also see leaders putting in extra effort in understanding digital.
Okay.
There's a flip side to it also, that most of the time leaders will catch on to buzzwords, and you end up pushing the teams to adopt those buzzwords. But that effort is being made. So I think a couple of years down the line, things will change, and there'll be understanding of how acquisition on digital platforms work, and how should you evaluate cost, and the same rules of demand and supply works on digital as well.